Hi, this is Rebekah
and Leslie
with the Geeky Girls Night In podcast. Geeky Girls Night In is a podcast with your fandom family sleepover style.
Empowering fans and creating inclusive fan spaces where we can all be ourselves.
So get your jammies,
grab a drink,
gather the fur babies,
and join the conversation.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening again this week. We are a full house today. We've got me and Leslie. We're both here.
Hello.
So, Leslie, last week you weren't here because you were at our very first live event that you organized locally where you are.
Yes.
I'm so proud of you. You did so awesome. But anyway, tell everybody how it went.
It was ridiculously fun. Before I tell you guys how it went and everything, I just want to throw out a few thank yous. I want to give a thank you to Good Games Indie for helping me set this up and pushing it through. Also, if you're in the Indianapolis area and you go downtown to Good Games, I think Saturday, maybe Sunday is the last day, but if you go in, mention the podcast, you'll get 10% off any of your D&D purchases.
Ooh, nice.
Yes, I'd like to thank them. I would like to thank Two Squares Podcast for showing up and also bringing their sons to play. My brother, my literal brother, he's McSteamy _ on Twitter. He came.
Oh, nice. You got that family support. That's always nice.
Yes, and we'll get to that because he's nuts. So
what?
Yeah,
No, not your family.
Right. My friend Denise and her son Joe. She brought her son Joe to play, and he was hilarious as well. I want to thank at Failnot on Twitter. He was our DM.
Mm-hmm. How do you spell that?
And FAILNAUT.
Okay.
And I also want to thank Tabletop Loot for sending me sets of D&D dice to hand out to everybody.
How fun. For those who didn't catch it in our previous episode, this was it was a D&D beginners learn to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Geeks of Color especially. And what did you think?
It was, Lord Jesus. Okay, so let me just tell the story, and you can kind of tell how the rest of this event went by this story.
Okay.
So the way that it works is the DM starts you out. He tells a story. He tells what you're doing. You've got character sheets that tell who you are and your strengths and your weaknesses and things like that. So in the beginning, we've been hired. We're a group. We've been hired to take these treasures to another town. And the person hiring us is kind of shifty. He says that he'll travel ahead of us, and we're all like, yo, why are you traveling ahead? Why can't you travel with us? And he's like kind of sketchy about his answer, but he leaves us, and he also has a bodyguard. So kind of sketch, but whatever.
This is the character, not an actual person, right?
This is a character.
Okay.
This is a character. So we start our journey, and then shortly after we start our journey, we come across two dead horses in the middle of the road.
Yikes.
From there, we have to figure out what to do. My brother's the cleric.
Okay.
And his first response to anything is not to investigate, not to see what's going on. He wants to cut the hair off the horses.
Why?
So that he can make a wig.
Why?
I don't know.
He's just a giant weirdo, basically off the chain there.
Right. So he has basically scalped the horses.
Oh no, don't tell me that.
And he's wearing their scalp on his head.
Oh no.
And he's also hacked up the horses. And he says
Ew, no, I don't want to know that.
No, hold on.
I know they're not real horses, but it still hurts.
So you've got to listen to this all the way through. So he's hacked up the horses, has told us that he's going to make jerky later, but in the meantime, he'll just eat the horse meat raw.
Okay.
So he's got a pocket full of wet horse.
This is your brother.
This is my brother. I told you he's not all there.
Uh-huh.
So he's got a pocket full of wet horse meat and a horse scalp on his head.
I am bewildered.
This is
Aren't
how
you
the
supposed to
game.
be going on like a quest or something?
This is how the game started.
Oh my
This is what
god.
started our
That was
game.
the opening.
Right.
You were like,
So
this is going to be interesting.
right. So now my brother couldn't stay for the entire thing. He had to leave. And part of the DM job is to create the story around your actions, kind of. And his thought for when my brother left was that our cleric got food poisoning from the pocket full of wet horse meat he's been eating.
Oh my god.
And but before my brother left, there was a huge discussion on who he was going to bequeath the horse wigs to
Oh my god.
because we were wondering if they were worth a lot of money. Like he
Okay.
could go sell them. Maybe it was a fashion trend. We don't.
Oh my god.
So this is how this. So it was a good game.
Yeah.
Um,
You guys
it was
just had a lot of silly fun.
it was an amazing game, and what I learned from it, what I took away from it, number one, like it's all a story, and honestly, for story writers, I think that D&D could be a valuable tool for you.
Hmm.
And here's how. You write a story and you're not sure that if parts of your story are going to work, use the story in D&D because then you've got people trying to figure out what to do.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
You can
So
play
like
with plot directions and
exactly.
think of different options and choices. Yeah, because I mean, I'm doing NaNoWriMo right now.
Mhm.
Trying to write. In fact, I'm up in a cabin in the mountains right now, trying to get more writing done. And actually, Chuck Wendig tweeted this. He's like, it's basically feeling around, trying to
Right.
find a story in the dark. Or
And
also, he called it horking up a story. So that's definitely rings true to me.
right. And in all honesty, I know for a fact that a lot of people take show episodes
Mhm.
from shows that they love and they turn them into D&D adventures. Like
Ah.
I have a friend on my Facebook, hey Glenn, and I know that he DM'd like a couple of Buffy episodes.
Ooh, I want to do
Yeah,
that. That
right,
sounds awesome. It does sound like a great way to play with story.
right. And so that's the main thing I took away from it. And everybody enjoyed themselves. And then everybody looked at me and they were like, so when are we doing this again? And I'm like, well, hadn't really thought that far.
I know you've really just willed this into existence by always bringing it up and putting it out there in the world.
Right,
And now that you've
right.
accomplished it, you're like, well, crap. I guess I could think of the next thing.
Right. So, and the beautiful thing about good games is that, they have a storefront, but also in the back, they have all these tables that are
Hmm.
free for you to use to run your games.
Yeah.
Like they have things on different nights and stuff, and they have a calendar for that. But yeah, you can go there with your friends and run a game. And also, I bought D&D. So now I'm the proud
Nice.
owner of it. But the thing is, like, we were looking at each other, and I'm like, well, if we do this again, who's going to DM?
Hmm.
Because, I'm creative, but I don't know if I'm that creative. It's a little intimidating, but the fail not was amazing. He's just like, you guys are just a bunch of weirdos.
I bet you were entertaining to him though.
Yeah, yeah, we really were. Because we had kids with us too. And
Yeah.
we had one kid kept asking if he could kick people in the shin.
My God.
And like, why are you? And then, like, at one point, we had a hostage situation,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, I'm going to take him and I'm going to tattle on him. And I'm just like, why are you tattling on this man? Like, what is that going to do? You're going to get him killed. And I want his money because that's my character. So stop.
It
So,
sounds
yeah,
like you guys had a great time though. I'm so happy.
it was absolutely ridiculously fun. And I can't
So
wait to do it
cool.
again. Even if you don't want to play, maybe find a friend that plays and
Hmm.
see if they'll run your story. and you could sit in and you could take notes and get great ideas and things like it's really interesting.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah.
You're smart.
I try. I really do. So
Have you done any other geeky stuff lately you want to bring up?
I didn't get hardly any books read on my cruise.
Mhm.
But I wanted to let you guys know that the final book for the Throne of Glass series,
Mhm.
so Selena Sardothian,
Mhm.
I think is how you. Anyway, that last book is out. Because I read my stuff on a Kindle. Unless I make a concerted effort, I don't know how long a book is or how many pages it is. But I'll tell you this. Number one, I'm a very fast reader.
Mhm.
I picked up this book, I read it for 2 hours, and I'm only 10% of the way through.
Wow.
So this is a hearty read. My Kindle died and I kept forgetting to plug it in. So I just plugged it in recently. So hopefully I'll get some reading done this week. But it's a thick old book. Oh, also, I will post this on Geeky Girls Night In Facebook page,
Mhm.
but there is a special deal going on, and I think it's good till November 20th. Kindle Unlimited is 99 cents for 3 months.
Oh wow.
Right. So that's like all the books you can read on all the ebooks you can read on Kindle.
And is that if you sign up for a regular membership?
Well, I don't know. I just signed up for the 3 months. It probably auto renews after the 3 months, and then it'll be like the 20 some odd dollars.
Uh-huh.
But you just have to remember to cancel it.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
That's
I
a
was
great deal.
really excited about that. Other than that, my cruise was absolutely wonderful.
So cool.
Key West, like there's chickens roaming around. Cuba, there's cats, and let me tell you about Cuba real quick before I end this. There's
I'm so jealous, by the way.
part of Cuba, there's part it's called Old Havana, and the government controls Old Havana.
Mhm.
And you will see a ton of stray dogs and stray cats.
Mhm.
Now, the stray dogs and stray cats are taken care of by the state. That means that they're spayed and neutered,
Oh wow.
they are vaccinated, and they are fed. And they're just allowed to roam the street and like they clean up after them and everything. The funniest part of that whole situation was that because they're taken care of by the state, they all have ID. Like they have a collar and the collar has a badge on it and the badge has their photo on it.
Wow. Shut up. That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
It like there was a dog just like passed out asleep in the street and I'm like, does this dog have a picture of himself on himself?
That is
And the
so cute.
and my tour guide was like, yeah, they have to register them. And I'm like,
I'm gonna need to see that for myself because that's the best thing I've ever heard.
it was so cute. I'm just like, this dog is, and like, it's illegal to mess with them, like hurt them or harm them in any way. So like, they just come up to you and like Evelyn looked at me, Geeky Baby looked at me and was like, is it okay if I pet, the cat? And I'm like, they're vaccinated. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like, she pet one and then 15 more rolled up like, hey girl.
Well, that's actually a really important for public health and a lot of other things. And I wish we did that here. Because as far as
Right?
I know, it's just up to citizens who are like, oh, we saw some feral whatever. We're going to try to grab him and get him spayed.
Right. It was very educational. I had lobster for $17. So that was
Wow.
like, oh my God, this is so cheap. I will eat all of your food. Um, we had to physically pry Evelyn from rice and beans,
Nice.
which was hilarious. I got to ride in a classic car as per usual when you go to Cuba. It was a really nice trip. Royal Caribbean always does a bang up job, cruise wise. Yeah. So if you guys get a chance to go to Cuba, check it out. I think you would dig it very much. There's a whole lot of history that I'm glossing over,
Yeah,
but we'd be here all night if I talked about it. So
that's great. Yeah, I would love to. Definitely mine I'm going to keep short because I didn't do anything that cool. And also because we have a super exciting guest today and we had a great interview with her. So I'm excited to get to that. Like I said, I'm doing NaNoWriMo, so I'm up in the mountains. Actually, my son came, which I was happy. One of my friends is letting us use her cabin on Lake Arrowhead. So I'm trying to get some writing done. I also fixed my phone, so now I can listen to audiobooks again, because I feel like mostly how I read books is audiobooks now, because I'm driving so often, whether it's to work or back, or taking my son to wrestling this or his friends that. So that's the only way I get to really have time to read. So I've been reading a lot. And I'm not going to do reviews because we have a great packed episode already, but I think I'll do them as extras. I read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Have you read that yet?
Yes, I have.
I believed that you had. I believed we talked about that, so I can't wait to talk to you about that. Of course, she won a Hugo Award for it, and it's definitely considered a new classic. I read The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman, which actually in the UK, they had a thing called The Big Read in 2003, and over 750,000 voters were received from the British public, and that book was actually voted their top 3rd favorite book of all time in the UK.
Have you read any of the other ones?
No, I just finished the first one. So
Okay.
basically, since I'm checking these books out from the library, I have to reserve the next one.
Gotcha.
So basically, I read the 5th season. I read The Golden Compass. They're both part of series. So now I've gone and checked out or put a hold on the second books. And in the meantime, I'm listening to Dealing with Dragons, because that is by Patricia C. Reedy, which is a middle grade book. So it's for kids. And basically, I found it because I was Googling cozy fantasy, because I was just trying to find anything that was more soothing, because, you know, times are stressful and some of the books are more intense. So I was like, I want to hear something I can listen to before bed that's just like fantasy and about dragons and something awesome. So I've started that one. So I'm really going through a lot of books. I'm going to have to do some reviews, because I just want to talk to people about them. They're so thought-provoking and so interesting and exciting. So, and in the meantime, we're going to get to talking to Lauren Tom. And God, she's a sweetheart. She's really, you know, she's someone who's been in a lot of our favorite shows, because she does a lot of genre. And I met her at Supernatural conventions, and she also does a lot of great work with Homeboy Industries, and she works closely with her fans. She's definitely one of those, I guess, celebrities that, you know, actors that really connects with her fan base and really tries to do awesome things together with them. So she talks about that. She tells us some great behind the scenes stories from Supernatural conventions, from the show itself, and from the Joy Luck Club. So it's just packed with a lot of great stuff. So definitely stay tuned. Hey, everybody. As I mentioned, we have a huge treat this week. The wonderful Lauren Tom is with us. Hi, Lauren.
Hey there.
It is such an honor. I will do a quick bio, but it's really hard to, you know, Lauren has had such a prolific career already. But Lauren is an American actress and voice actress. Her roles include Lena St. Clair in the Joy Luck Club, Julie and Friends, and the voices for both mother and daughter characters on Futurama and King of the Hill. She portrays Linda Tran on the CW show Supernatural, which is, of course, how I met you. And Leslie's also a Supernatural fan. So
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
And she portrays Celia Mack on the Disney Channel series Andi Mack. So does that kind of cover it? Is there anything
That
you want to
covers
add?
it.
Okay, great. So my first question is that you've done a lot of work on shows with sci-fi fantasy fan bases, like Supernatural, but also a lot of iconic animated series like Futurama, Batman Beyond, Kim Possible, Avatar: The Last Airbender. So what's it like having a lot of sort of genre sci-fi fantasy geek fans?
It's fantastic because I've always kind of identified as a geek myself.
Oh, great.
It's been nothing but positive for me to have been part of those shows that you've just mentioned, just because of the love that I receive through social media from Supernatural and Futurama, and you know, I feel like Futurama fans were basically responsible for even bringing us back.
Wow.
So hopefully that'll happen one day when Supernatural goes off the air at some point. You know, it'll probably keep breathing life into it.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I used to love cartoons so much that in college, I studied animation and thought that I might want to go into that. So it's kind of interesting that I ended up being voice actor for animated shows as well. And so I don't know. I kind of feel about 14 emotionally at heart, and I'm sort of like stuck there.
Sounds like it's kind of full circle, too.
It's full circle, and so I feel like I love the shows that I've been fortunate enough to be hired on, and I love the fan bases. One of my favorite things is going to the conventions and getting to meet people face to face, and just be able to thank them and hear what it is that they've loved about the shows, and just feeling like, of course it makes me feel old, but a lot of times people will say that they grew up on my shows.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. And I mean, even Friends has been, 20 years ago now. So time just hurtles by.
Yeah, time flies. In fact, I think the first time I met you was at a Supernatural convention. And I remember we have that karaoke party on Friday nights, and you did a Gwen Stefani song. It was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was practicing, and it was so funny because I think Felicia Day was there too, and she was just, she and I have such different styles, and I feel like I could have learned from her because I grew up with a tiger mom who wanted to make sure that I was perfect at everything. So I was backstage going over my steps and trying to remember the words, and and I feel like this young generation is just a little bit more confident in their voice and in their being able to just wing it. So she goes, "Oh, honey, they're going to love you. Just get out there. I'll be fine." Here she is, like 20 to 30 years younger than me. And I don't know. I just was really impressed with her.
Well, you did a great job. I remember you did Hollaback Girl. It was so much fun.
Yes, I did. It was so much fun. I just love that kind of more of a badass persona, which really... Linda Tran was my first foray into that kind of character because I'm 5 feet tall and Asian, and no one's ever let me be a badass, let alone punch someone in the face.
That's cool.
So I was kind of really enjoying that role, let's say.
Awesome. One of the things that we at Geeky Girls Night In focus on is using fandom for good. That is one of the reasons you're kind of a dream guest for us. Rebekah is the one that told me about how you organize your fandoms to support Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit why you're so dedicated to Homeboy Industries and what the experience has been like working with fans to do good?
Well, it's all been so enriching and has really given my life meaning. I really I can't explain it any other way that I just feel so grateful and blessed to have found an organization like Homeboy Industries and then tie it together with an incredible fandom like Supernatural, because Homeboy Industries is about helping the most marginalized people in society, and it's sort of the last stop. So all these other agencies that are available for people that they might go to, these are the folks that are rejected from those also. So because of age or gender, and this stop is for formerly incarcerated men and women who used to be part of a gang, and it's very difficult to get a job once you have a record. And there are so many other problems that are generational. So these folks were born into this. It wasn't even like trying to give people a second chance. It's really more like giving people a first chance. And so when you can stop, and really dig deep and heal people on a very deep level, that's when you can stop the generations that keep rolling out the same sort of gang life that these folks are born into. So when I think about the Supernatural fandom, I feel like at the end of the day, what human beings want is to feel like they belong and to connect to one another. And so I feel like the Supernatural fandom is a merry band of misfits. We're all a little bit off, and in a great way, and in a way that can bond us together. And I'm sure that each person's story is different. My particular story is just having grown up in an Asian family that was the only Asian family in the community, I always felt like an outsider and
Yeah.
had to withstand a ton of bullying. And I don't know, and there's so many other ways in which people feel like an outsider. And so I feel like it's bonded us together. And so it wasn't as hard of a sell for me to talk about Homeboy with this fandom, because I feel like as soon as I said something like, who believes in inclusion and giving people a second chance, it's like almost every hand went up.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
so I have found that this fandom is really loving too, out of a compassion that was born out of having had hard experiences themselves. So I have nothing but respect for Homeboy Industries and for the fandom. And I feel like, if your listeners want to explore what Homeboy does a little bit more, they can go to the website, which is homeboyindustries.org. And it was founded by a Jesuit priest who is so funny. Sometimes when you're trying to deliver a message, you can really go much deeper when it comes with some humor as well. And Father Greg Boyle, he is just this charismatic, amazing speaker, as well as walking his talk. And he also did a TED Talk. And so I really honestly believe that he's a living saint. And so the work that he's doing, it just blows my mind, because you can, if you were to go to Homeboy Industries, you can go and have lunch there. It's downtown near Chinatown. You can actually feel the kinship and the love in the air when you're there, because there's hope, and people are all lined up in chairs waiting to get their 10, 15-minute audience with Father Boyle, because he's basically offering all these free services for them, like drug and alcohol rehab, and then removing their tattoos, anger management, parenting classes, getting their GED, and skills that they need in order to get back into society. So their first job is within the bakery at Homeboy Industries. So he's actually getting them back into society with a job, which he feels that really can support one's sense of self-esteem after you've done all of that other healing. So it's really a sight to behold.
Yeah,
I encourage people to go down there.
I will definitely check out their website. Unfortunately, I'm located in Indianapolis, so I can't go down there
you're
and
in
see it.
Indianapolis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you know what? If you're looking for something to read, too, his first book is called Tattoos on the Heart, and that was my first introduction to Homeboy. And so if you read his book, it's also, you will be laughing or crying on every page.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because he's so funny, but then also the stories are so heartbreaking. So if you're looking for your next book, I recommend that, and then you can kind of really get a strong hit of what it's about. And my family has been fundraising for them for the past 10 years. My kids were really little when we started, because they do a yearly fundraiser, and that's when I tweet out to all the Supernatural fan base, to help. And
Okay.
Rebekah, that one year that you came, it was so much fun.
Because you
wasn't
do
it?
a few things. You do, obviously, at the conventions, you do raise money, correct? And then, but also you get together a team, because they have I think it's a 10K walk. And
Yes, it's a 5K run or walk. Yeah, we
5K.
always just walk it.
Yeah, and then so you get together Supernatural Futurama fans, and it is, well, I have had the pleasure of going one year. I brought my son and my nephew, and it is such an amazing feeling. Everyone's there with, a similar values and goals, and we have this nice walk, this beautiful walk, and really,
We walk through
bond.
downtown.
And,
Yes, it really just raises your sense of well-being. You just feel I'm feeling that way these days, just because it's my first foray into being a supporter of what's going on politically. And I have to say, I know, Rebekah, you're into politics also, but I feel like my older son is kind of pulling me into it because he's so obsessed. But
that's
what
great.
a wonderful feeling to be a part of something bigger than yourself, don't you think?
Yes, and actually, I met people that day on that walk that are my dear friends to this day.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I encourage any fans out there listening, next year, please join us, because it is a ton of fun. And we actually had a party because we were the biggest team or something like that. Or we raised the most money, and Homeboy threw us a party, and Osric came, and it was just such a gas. You know, I'll never forget that party.
I will not, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention. So since we were one of the top, I think the top fundraisers,
Yes.
we had the party, and then I have to say, Lauren, you were such a sweetheart because that party happened to fall on my sister's birthday because it's in October.
Oh, that's right.
And I emailed you and was like, Lauren, how would you feel if I brought a cake for my sister? And you were like, yes, absolutely, do it. So I got a cake where I had printed out like supernatural photos. And you and Osric came out of the kitchen with it, singing to her. And she was just like, there is no birthday in my life that will ever top that moment. Like,
oh my gosh.
And that was so sweet of you.
I love hearing that.
Yeah. And it was a great,
I remember it well.
It was such a great experience, I think. Just those positive bonding experiences. And I definitely recommend it.
Okay, so you're not that far, so I'm gonna. I really want you to come next year. Okay. Rebekah.
Okay.
Okay. Leslie has a little bit more of an excuse, but
yeah.
Just a little bit of a way to go. Yeah.
So another thing I really wanted to talk to you about, because I'm a 90s girl. I'm in my 40s by now, and you know, when I was a teenager, I remember seeing the Joy Luck Club.
Oh.
And so, you know, you have, just by being you, but also through your projects, such as the Joy Luck Club, broken a lot of social barriers. So the Joy Luck Club is a 1993 American film about the relationship between Chinese American women and their Chinese immigrant mothers. 4 older women, all Chinese immigrants living in San Francisco, meet regularly to play mahjong, eat, and tell stories. Each of these women has an adult Chinese American daughter, and the film reveals the hidden pasts of older women and their daughters and how their lives are shaped as they strive to understand their family bonds and one another. So this movie was so impactful. I still remember watching it. I still remember the scenes and how deeply it affected us as we watched it. And it was very special for a lot of reasons. Obviously, there had only been one Hollywood film at all to date that had featured an all Asian American and Asian cast.
Right.
But also it was so strongly about women's stories, which was still something very sort of not done. So I know it's something that has really become iconic and important to people. So I just want to ask, how was being a part of a cultural touchstone like the Joy Luck Club? Like, how's that affected your life? Do people still talk to you about it? Do you guys stay in touch? Like, how's that gone for you?
Oh, well, yes, we have stayed in touch, especially the 4 daughters. And what's funny about about it being the 25th anniversary now is that we're almost the age of the mothers, you know, the actors that play the mothers. And the Academy threw us this amazing event to celebrate the anniversary, and it was, oh my gosh, it was so moving because my sons, both of my sons, I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, and neither one of them had seen the film. And so I was able to be in the theater watching them watch it, and it was cool because I felt like it really held up. And I had forgotten how much humor there was in it because I was a little bit nervous that, you know, 2 teenage boys wouldn't be able to relate to all these women. Like, it's kind of been touted as a chick flick in a bit, you know, in a way. And but they were hanging in right in there with it. And you know, I'm not sure that we knew that it was going to become, you know, kind of iconic, but we did know that the book had been a bestseller and that millions of people had read it, so that we did want to do justice to the book. And the screenplay was written by the author as well, Amy Tan, and Ron Bass. And so they were there on set every day, which was just wonderful, so that if we had any questions, we could just go and ask them. And I remember the director, Wayne Wang, asked each one of us daughters which character in the book we related to the most. And so I chose Lena, the part I ended up playing, because her storyline is about feeling invisible. And that's how I felt when I was growing up. I was, you know, culturally, in an Asian culture, you're raised to be extremely polite and kind of soft-spoken. And so not only were we the silent minority in the world at large, but we were also supposed to be quiet. So we were the silent minority, rather.
Yeah.
And it took me years to really find my voice. Getting back to Felicia Day again, it just reminds me because I read this tweet that she was saying it's really important to stand somewhere as an artist. You know, when you just put out what your beliefs are and your even your political views, which can be very scary. And I have always been nervous about that because I didn't want to offend anyone. It's so deep in my bones to be uber polite that you know, when I realized, you know, if you don't stand somewhere, it really, you can end up just kind of getting swept away with just the mass of what people think on any given moment, and that's not who I wanted to be or how I wanted to live my life. So I've started to be a little bit braver about exposing, you know, what my beliefs are and what I think and feel. And but getting back to the Joy Luck Club, I think that it's one of the projects that I've been most proud of, just because you know, it did have an all Asian cast, and these stories had never been seen before, and there was so much truth in what we were trying to put across, and I feel like as an actor, one of the greatest joys I have is to be able to express something on screen or on the stage that is inaccessible to most people, because they can't, you know, we're trained to kind of access our emotions, and then to be able to put it out there so that someone might be able to see it and recognize themselves, and then maybe start having a conversation in their own lives about some of the topics that are being presented. And so I think that one of my favorite experiences in that time was when I would be just walking down the street, and a woman, either they're Asian or white, it didn't really matter. It kind of cut across. It was universal in that way. They would tell me that they watched that movie and then opened up a conversation with their mother, or they watched it with their mother, and were able to have a talk about it afterwards, so that, you know, you can start talking about the characters in the movie and then maybe segue into your own life. And that just really touched me, because it made me feel like, well, maybe I am making a contribution to society and not just doing this frivolous little job, you know. And I really feel like with the momentum of the Asian movement right now, I was so proud and excited for Crazy Rich Asians, and so relieved that I liked the movie so much that I was going to support it no matter what. But I was so happy that I thought it was great, and I laughed and I cried, and you know, people have asked me, you know, if they felt like that movie could have been made if Joy Luck Club had never been made prior, and I feel like we did pave the way a bit, just because people were more used to the idea of an all Asian cast, and I feel that the one wonderful unifying element to the success of Crazy Rich Asians is social media, which is you know, something we didn't have back in 1993. In a way to get the word out immediately. It really helped organize the Asian community to actually get in their car, drive to the theater, and pay their money to see the movie.
Yeah.
Because, you know, money talks, and I think Hollywood really perked up and took notice by how much money that movie has made. And so I was delighted to hear at that Academy event that they threw that Ron Bass and Amy Tan were talking about that there's been talk about a sequel to Joy Luck Club.
Wow, that would be amazing.
You know, we would be the mothers now. You know, and we have kids that are grown.
Oh my God, that would
so
be amazing.
I knock on wood that'll happen, because that would be such an incredible project, I think, and also it's the right time, given all these other shows and TV shows and movies that are coming out with so many Asian artists attached to it. It's just wonderful.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I haven't had a chance to see Crazy Rich Asians. I don't get to see a lot of movies in theaters. I have a 3-year-old.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
yeah.
yeah, you're going to be a DVD girl for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. So that, and I'm also waiting on the book from the library as well, because I'm one of those people that likes to read the book first, then go to the movie,
Oh,
and then
okay,
compare.
okay.
I'm
All right, yeah, that's fair enough. Um, I'm
so
usually a little bit disappointed, but you know, we'll see how you feel.
see, I see how people can be disappointed about the differences, but I can take it either way. I'm really good about that. I'm like, I understand that they couldn't shovel all of this book into this
Yes.
movie, and I don't know. I'm okay with
That's
it.
good.
Okay, good, good. I
Even
actually never read that book, but it still was extremely entertaining to me. That world wasn't something that I was naturally really drawn to.
Mhm.
hmm
It's a very different movie. Have you seen it, Rebecca?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay, well, you guys can tell me after you've seen it. They're really different. The Joy Luck Club and Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
It's a lot like it's glossier.
Yeah,
Crazy Rich
yeah.
Asians.
It's a
Yeah.
rom-com, and it's about
Yes,
rich,
exactly.
rich people. I mean, that's not the heart. Obviously, there's an emotional heart to it, but yeah.
Right, and it's gorgeous to look at, and
Yeah.
it's also fun to see people with that much money
Yeah.
because
yeah,
everything is so beautiful.
Right.
yes, yes.
But yeah, anyway. Um, so yeah, I've been tracking different projects, and I'm pleased to see that that Crazy Rich Asians isn't the only project that the Asian community is getting behind. So I think we're finally unifying and getting out there. But it's got to continue. We can't just
Yeah.
drop it. You know.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us into our next question.
Uh huh.
You know, around in the 90s, around that time, many were hoping that things like the Joy Luck Club, as well as a crop of other movies centering Latino, Black, and Native American centered stories, um, signified the beginning of the end of erasure and exclusion of people of color in the entertainment industry. Now, I was what 13, 14 in 1996.
Oh
Okay,
my
young
gosh,
one.
So, well,
You're the
the
baby.
baby.
well, I mean, but like I remember like some of these. Like I remember Boys in the Hood
Uh huh.
and
Mi Familia came out around that time.
right, don't be a menace society,
Hmm.
or menace to society, excuse me, and other things, and like even the funnier parodies that came around because of those more serious movies, like
Right.
don't don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. So like I remember that, and I remember like I hadn't seen a lot of um, films where black people that looked like me were like the lead characters, you
Hmm.
know?
Right.
So it
Right.
was pretty exciting. But like I was a kid, so that wasn't, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to put this. It like people thought it was, signaling the end, and then like it was going to be more, but then, it took 25 more years until like the next all
Yeah.
Asian cast movie, Crazy Rich
Right.
Asians was made. And
Right.
even now, like in the black community, Black Panther and stuff like that, like now they're getting their, it seems like now they're actually getting that voice that they should have had in the 90s. Do you believe that it's different now, and are we truly seeing the barriers come down?
I think it's all a process, and I don't think that either any of the ethnic communities can let their guard down, and that's what's so wonderful about having these activist groups, and I feel like the Asian community has actually learned a lot from the black community because I feel like the black community is a lot
Mm.
further along. Just because what I was saying before that vocally, like they're I feel like the African American community is not afraid of using their voice, and the Asian community is just taking a lot longer to get that out of our system. Like it's
hmm
okay to speak out, and so I think that there was a little bit of scuffle a long time ago about. Some of the Asian community members were like, "Hey, why doesn't the black community help us more?" And it's
Right.
just I didn't think that was fair. because we're all trying to, help ourselves, and we can be inspired and learn from one another rather than being competitive with one another.
Well,
Right.
Constance Wu has been really amazing and outspoken about all of those issues. She's a really smart lady.
Oh, who, Constance? Yeah, no, she has no problem using her
Yeah.
voice. But then again, she's a lot younger than I am too,
Yeah.
and so it might be a generational thing as well.
Hey, the Joylet Club, the sequel. We have a good topic already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I would be just terrified to be standing and saying some of the things that she has, and so I think it's great that we have her. And then I think that everyone has their place though, because you want all different kinds of approaches and voices to be out there in the world.
Yeah.
So it doesn't become so strident.
Sure.
Yeah, and she said that too, that, yes, we're celebrating Crazy Rich Asians, but we should be telling a lot of stories, because no movie can be everything to everyone. So we have to get all the voices out there.
Right. Well, that's a lot of. We got some criticism when Joylet Club first came out from the Asian community, especially the men, because they wanted to know why all Asian men were depicted as jerks. I still remember this. We had a panel, and some Asian guy stood up and was really angry and said that. And Wayne Wing, our director, who's Asian, he's Chinese, said, "Well, that's because Asian men are jerks."
Well,
and everybody started laughing, and then Amy Tan said, "No, look, here's the point. Like we are the first project that's out there in the world, and this is just my particular story. This is my personal story. So the antidote is for there to be more stories, because I can't possibly represent the entire Asian experience. I can't, and so, her whole point was that the more personal something is, the more universal it becomes.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people were able to, relate to it. So, she said, so my challenge to you is please write your story and let's get it out there. And so, that has been the message for a long time, and it is sad that it took 25 years to have the next movie with an all-Asian cast. But, I mean, I would rather just focus on the positive, that at least it happened.
Right.
And I just feel like things take time, and people need to get used to ideas.
Well,
and
it's
let
also
them simmer down.
It was also set a while ago as far as the mother's experiences, and misogyny was everywhere, and no one was an exception to it. But
That's
like
true.
you said, we just need more stories. I guess I agree.
Yes, absolutely. And some of the harshness of the men in that movie, took place in China as well, where it's a completely different culture than in the United States. And of course, the people who immigrated here still carried the generational, patriarchy which was handed down. So, as far as Asian American stories, we need more of those as well.
Yeah.
And so I just think across the board, and in politics and in all fields, I feel like the Asian experience is becoming more, in focus and in the world.
That's great.
So that makes me feel good.
That's awesome. So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as I mentioned, and as we've talked about, Leslie and I are both Supernatural fans. So we definitely have to ask you a Supernatural question or two.
Okay, sure.
So Linda Tran has been through a lot. So she started off more as kind of a sweet mom, a little bit more meek. I mean, she's always a very good mom, but a little more, typical, suburban mom. And then as she is plunged into the frightening and very lethal world of the Winchesters, she shows herself to be very resourceful and even brutal when she needs to be. So what motivated Linda Tran's journey from this sort of normal suburban mom to someone who will do anything, even kill, to protect her son or to avenge herself?
Well, I think that you can really understand a person's character under extreme stress. So I have a feeling that Linda was probably always pretty tough, but the opportunity never presented itself for her to demonstrate that. And you probably know this, that the character, when she used to be milder and meeker, was actually a different actress.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think they actually reconceived the character when I came in, because I think that my character was never really, the arc wasn't completely from shy wallflower to where I got to. I kind of feel like my first episode, I had some spunk in there.
Oh, yeah. You were like, what makes you think this is my first tattoo? I remember that line. That was really cute.
That's right. Yes. Ding, ding, ding. And so that made it even more fun for me, just because of who I am and was, in real life, like just the trajectory of my own personal growth about being tougher, But it was just thrilling and exciting for me to play a part like that. And I feel like, well, you guys are both moms, so I know that you understand this. Our job as moms is to keep our offspring alive, And so I feel like there is nothing that I would do in my real life would not do rather, in order to accomplish that job, because it's a really serious, deep job we are given when we give birth, and I kind of failed as when it comes to Supernatural, because Kevin ends up dying.
Oh, let us not speak of that travesty. No.
But I did everything I could.
Well, and in fairness, in the Winchester world, pretty much everybody dies, even the Winchesters.
That's true. That doesn't actually mean anything, really, at the end of the day, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah, but I also believe that, Linda and Kevin are in constant contact anyway. And that's what I would want to believe, that they can communicate still.
And actually, one of my favorite moments is after Linda is freed from her, this demon is like kidnapping, torturing her.
Yeah.
She is freed, but the boys don't step in and exact any sort of justice for her. They just kind of go, to the demon, I wouldn't worry about Crowley, I'd worry about her. And they kind of step back and are like, you've got this one. And she's the one that decided what to do with him, and she's the one that got to kill him. And I thought that was really cool.
They let me have that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, the writers were so incredible in that way. Because it was funny, too.
Yeah.
Totally. When they reveal that it's me,
yeah,
that's going to do that. And then I have like another little story to share with you about that just mortified me for months.
Oh, no.
They gave me a retractable knife to practice with, okay, when I was stabbing that guy. And so they were really careful, and the stuntmen were just all over it, and we practiced it many times. And then before you actually roll, they do one more rehearsal for the camera, okay? And then they actually film it. But we had practiced like in rehearsal earlier, and then we had our makeup touch-ups, and then we did one more rehearsal. And for some reason, I was handed an actual knife, a fake knife, but one that did not retract.
Oh, no.
And I thought that it was the same retractable knife I had been practicing with. But somehow it got mixed up. And so when I went to stab him, because I had to actually do all the motions so the camera would know where I was going.
Right.
I actually, hurt him a bit. I bruised him right between his breastbone.
Oh, no.
And I was in such shock that it didn't retract. And, of course, he was in shock, too, because it sent him reeling backwards because I really did it. I full out did it like I had been doing it in rehearsal. I lost an entire night's sleep that night.
Oh, no.
Because I felt so horrible.
Oh, geez,
I don't think I've ever told anybody that story before. So you guys are the first.
Oh,
because
wow.
I certainly didn't want to get anyone in trouble, and it was an honest mistake. And thank God he was okay. And he just did everything he could to get me to not feel so bad. about it.
That's sweet. That goes to show even like the most experienced and professional things like that can go wrong. That's crazy.
Oh gosh, yes. And here I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna seek revenge, and I was doing it with so much gusto. You know what I mean?
Oh
no.
Oh Lord. But it all worked out okay, and
Yeah.
he was okay. He just was a little bit bruised, and it was a scare, and so.
Yeah.
But we we got through it.
Oh goodness.
Oh no.
Yeah. The hazards of acting sometimes.
Right? You wouldn't
Yes.
think it'd be dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
also, you know what? The rest of the cast just completely came to my side and to support me. And Misha even told me a story about something that happened with him one time, which I won't repeat because that should come from him. But just suffice it to say that they could not have been any sweeter.
Oh,
Good.
To let me know that those things happen.
That's good.
Good.
Oh.
Oh.
Anyway.
Given that Linda Tran is one of the very, very few characters who has survived so many seasons, what do you think is next for her? And also, what do you want for her?
Oh, isn't that so great that they didn't actually kill my character
I know.
off? And
It's pretty unusual.
I don't know. I wish I could make it happen where they would bring me back, but it would be so cool to help the boys on become a hunter for an episode.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And be able to help them, because I think Linda has proven herself that she's smart and she's tough, and I think she would be an asset. And I think that they've written the boys' characters in such a way that they think she's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
I don't think she'd be a hindrance. So I mean, I doubt. I don't know if that would ever happen, but that would be my dream. It would be so much fun.
Yeah, totally.
For them to tie it in too somehow with Kevin too.
And it would never hurt to have Osric, because Osric is the absolute best, isn't he? Isn't he just the best?
Oh gosh, he's like my third son.
Oh.
I hope my boys grow up to be like him. He is just a gem.
That's the
He's
highest
an amazing
compliment,
person.
and I absolutely understand that, because he is just a precious human being.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to him too, because he just has been a light in my life, and he's the one who actually got me into social media. He helped me create my accounts on Twitter and Instagram, taught me how to do it, because I just was a big dinosaur, and no clue. And that was a way for me to connect to the fandom and be able to, support Homeboy, and just it all rolled out from there. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of gratitude.
And I do have to mention then that he was at that Homeboy Industries party, and you presented him with a painting which was a portrait of him with one of his foster kittens. You remember that? His little foster kitten, because of course he fosters kittens. Of course he does.
Yeah, I was able to present the painting to him that night.
That was
really
beautiful.
fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, moving on to your current project. Now you're on Andi Mack. Can you tell us a little bit about that show and the character you play?
Oh, I play Celia Mack, who is sort of the matriarch of the family. And in the pilot of this show, you think that I've got two daughters. One's 31 and one's 13. And by the end of the pilot, you find out that the 31-year-old is actually the mother of the 13-year-old.
Okay.
So Andi Mack, that's the main character. She thinks that her sister is her sister for the whole time growing up, and then she finds out that her sister's actually her mother.
Wow.
And so that makes me the grandmother. And thank God they write in that my character can't stand being called grandmother because, not ready yet.
Yeah.
And a little side tidbit of info on that is that the creator of our show, Terry Minsky, this wonderfully talented writer, she read in a newspaper article the story of Jack Nicholson's life, and that was his story. The woman who he thought was his sister his whole life was actually his mother.
Wow.
And she thought, wow, that would be an interesting show.
Really?
So what happened is, Terry's white, and she's Jewish, and she wrote the title character for a 13-year-old white Jewish girl. And they saw, 1,000 kids. And Peyton Elizabeth Lee, who's half Chinese, just wowed them, and they ended up casting her, which caused them to then cast the sister and the mother, or the mother and the grandmother, as Asian as well. And so then the show ended up starring 3 Asian women, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And a complete accident.
Funny.
But they were kind of on a roll when it came to taking chances, because the storyline in itself was edgy. But I think that Gary Marsh, the president of Disney Channel, knew that he had to do something different in order to retain viewers for that channel, because I feel like, kids are coming in so sophisticated now that they don't really go for like the button acting, this super cutesy, storylines, because they can't relate to them.
Yeah.
And so I think it was really smart and brave of Disney to allow edgier storylines and then just more inclusion. So Andy's best friend is African American, and then we have a character that comes out as being gay, and they're still working on that storyline revealing itself deeper. We're in season 3 right now. It took them a while to kind of let that storyline unfold. I think because, they were getting some pushback too from, the sponsors and like the conservative audience members as well. So it's a little bit delicate. But I feel as if the message of inclusion and just having a show out there that so many people can see themselves reflected back, it makes me just so deeply proud to be a part of the show, because I never had that growing up. Yeah. I could never find, any representation of myself, and I searched for that for years.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this show and this generation is finally correcting that problem, and hopefully for generations to come, now it will just roll out where it's not a big deal for a show to have an extremely diverse cast.
Cool.
So, the wonderful, not that we were trying to win awards, but GLAAD gave us award, and we were nominated for a Peabody, and BAFTA has just nominated us for an award. So awesome. I feel like, I think that the show, because of its social conscience, is really made a bit of a splash, especially for a Disney show. So
that's fantastic.
It makes me really proud. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Sounds very cool, and I want to check that out. So.
Well, your daughter's only 3, right? So she's a little young.
Yeah. But funny story though, like when I was on maternity leave, that's when I first started watching Supernatural, and so I have a picture of her. First of all, she's a Sam girl.
What?
You are kidding me. No. She's not scared?
She's not scared. This is when she was tiny. So I want to say about 6 months old. She would sit on my bed, and like I have like a canopy bed, so it's got like the front part, like the footboard or whatever, and it's metal, and it's a princess bed. It's my princess bed, because I couldn't have a princess bed growing up. I have a princess bed as an adult. Anyway, so like
better late than never.
Exactly. So she would dangle her little legs in the little curly cues of the princess bed, and she would watch Supernatural. And if anybody would yell at Sam, she'd start yelling at the TV.
Come on.
No
way.
Leslie, that's what I do. No.
That's hilarious.
This is the
you
weirdest
film
thing.
her doing that sometime. Yeah. That would be so funny.
I think I have it on video somewhere, but yeah, like I was just sitting there and I was watching her, and like somebody came on the screen. It was Dean. Dean was yelling at Sam, and she's like, I'm like, oh. Okay.
Can't believe it. I guess she had a little crush. She feels protective of him.
That's cute.
It was the funniest thing in the world, and I'm like, see, and like this has been a thing ongoing in our house, because like I'm a Dean girl. He's a Sam girl.
I think I am too, actually.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what is this nonsense? And then
That's
also
hilarious.
like I grew up, heavy in the boy band era. And so I'm an NSYNC fan, like a huge NSYNC fan.
Yes.
Like she comes up to me like, what, a month and a half ago, she's like, Mama, I want to listen to the Backstreet Boys. And I'm like,
kids will do that.
Get over
Kids will
this.
do that.
Yeah. I'm like, in this house.
We're NSYNC
It's
house.
funny how they come in, just, their own little personalities.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like my husband, he was in the room too, and he just gasped. He was like, "Oh no!"
That's
Like,
hilarious.
cute.
I'm sitting there fuming. I'm like, "We listen to NSYNC in this house."
That is so cute.
Wait, Rebekah, do you have a boy or a girl?
I have a boy.
Does your son watch Supernatural with you?
He did. So I definitely raised him with geekery. Like his first show, and actually the first song he ever hummed was the theme song to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because that is
Really?
like what he cut his teeth on. And I would try to put on the less scary episodes when he was a baby, and he would get mad if there wasn't enough fighting fast enough. He would go, because he spoke Spanish first. Instead of saying quiero, he would say ki. And then he called fighting pun pun. So he'd go ki pun pun, ki pun pun.
God, that is so funny.
And then when he got older, we watched Supernatural, and I have actually taken him to a few conventions. So now he's a teenager, and he's like, "Oh, I'm doing my own thing." Now he mostly watches anime, actually, and reads manga.
Oh, okay.
But he's doing his own thing.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
it's all good.
he's come to a
Yeah.
few Supernatural conventions. We've got a picture of him with Jensen. He did a little Eye of the Tiger pose. I think there's.
Oh, so he's moved on a little bit, but
Yeah, he'll be back.
yeah, he'll be back.
Well, Lauren,
cute.
I wanted to say I told you 45 minutes. It's been about that. We have a few more questions, but we can just wrap it up
Okay,
at this
sure, go
point
ahead.
if you like, or do you want us to go ahead and finish asking you the last questions?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, I said, do you want us to just wrap it up? We have a couple more questions.
Oh, yeah, no, you can go ahead and ask
Okay.
the last couple.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So you've had an incredible longevity in the entertainment industry, which is unusual for anyone, but especially for, a woman of color in an industry that sidelines diverse stories. Do you have any secrets to that?
Oh, thank you for saying that. Whenever young folks ask me for advice, going into this business, I always tell them that, the only thing you can really control is your craft, because there's so many variables involved about, what you look like, especially in film, because it's so visual.
Mm-hmm.
That I just tell people to study as much as they possibly can, so that they become so good that they can't not hire you.
Yeah.
And when you look at the example I gave with Andi Mack, that character wasn't written for an Asian girl, and so
Right.
the competition is stiff, and so you have to really have something, and no one else can do you the way that you can. And so I feel that you can. I still study to this day. I'll go to class, and so I just think you can always keep learning. And then the other advice I'd like to just impart is to not take anything personally, and try your best to be a team player, because a lot of times at auditions, they want to know, are you good? Are you going to fit with this role? Do you look right visually? Do you have the talent? But then the last little piece is, would I want to work with this person?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes a show can go on for 7 years. I mean, look at Supernatural. How many years has that been?
14th season.
This person?
14th
How
season.
many?
14.
14. Right. So
Longest
do I
running
think I'd
sci-fi
have
fantasy
fun
show
with this
now, I think,
person?
on
Like,
as far as a
are they
network
a team
show.
player? Are they going to be a diva? So it's important to be a team player and a nice person, I think.
Awesome.
So hopefully that people have felt that way about me. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so do you have any dream roles that you'd still like to play that you haven't gotten to yet?
Oh, that's interesting. I used to have more aspirations in theater to play more classical parts, but I have to be honest, at this point in my life and my career, because I'm going to be putting 2 kids through college, and my older one says he wants to go to law school too.
Oh.
I feel like my dream job would be more having a steady job in a television series, like I have now, because I love that feeling of a sense of community that you build. You really become a family, and then the pay is quite nice. And of course, I love films too, but that'll last like 3 months, whereas a TV series can go on for years, and it's nice to just have that steadiness of income and the connection that I have with people that can be deeper. So I'm not so sure if it's a role, but it's more of like a position. You know what I mean? Like I'd like to keep working in TV, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Is there anything else that you have coming up or any projects you're working on right now you'd like people to know about?
I am. I've actually did one episode of a show called Goliath that airs on the Amazon.
Yeah.
It streams on Amazon, and it stars Billy Bob Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
And in season 2, I'm in episode 7, and it was a crazy episode. But my character kind of brings some levity to the show because it's a procedural and it's pretty serious. But my character's really zany and nuts and out there, and she's the exact opposite of Celia Mack that I play on Andi Mack. And so they got picked up for season 3. So I am actually going to be a recurring on that show now.
Oh, how fun. I'll have to watch it then. I have Amazon Prime. I haven't tried that yet, though.
You do? Okay. Well, just suffice it to say that in episode 7, if you want to just see my character, and because she is coming back, I think all you need to know is that Billy Bob's character and my character are kidnapped. We're kidnapped together.
Ooh.
And we're trying to run away from the bad guys. Because it's almost like a standalone episode, so you don't even have to have watched the whole second season of Goliath. And just to warn you, it's really gruesome if you wanted to watch the whole season. But in my one episode, everything happens off camera, so it won't be real squeamish.
Yeah, I will definitely check that out.
That's
That
kind
sounds
of
awesome.
warning.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
But anyway, Supernatural fans, they're used to everything.
Oh, yeah,
so.
totally.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
In fact,
pretty much.
that actually might be a nice crossover in a way
There you go.
for that fandom to watch that show. But
I will
anyway.
definitely add it to my watch list.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I think that's about it, and just some more animated shows. But I'll probably be posting that as they come out because I'm not supposed to yet.
Okay.
But
Cool.
I play a character called Mop Girl too on Disenchantment, which is Matt Groening's next show after the one after Futurama.
That's gotten really good reviews.
That's out already.
Yeah.
And I think I come in like a couple episodes towards the end of that season, so that's kind of an ongoing gig too. But
It's gotten really good
lovely
reviews
to talk
too.
to you guys.
You too. Do you want to let people know how they can find you online? You're on Twitter, right?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I would love that. So I have a website that we're just building now, which will be laurentom.com. And then on Twitter and Instagram, I'm laurentom9000. So, yeah, give me a follow. I would love to keep in touch and say hi and let me know that you've heard this podcast, too.
Yes, and if you're in the LA area, check out the Homeboy Industries 5K and come walk with us.
Yes, absolutely. Or, if you're looking for a place to eat, the food is really, really good. So go by Homeboy and have lunch.
And the Homegirls Cafe is delicious, too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome.
Thank
great.
you, guys.
Well, thank you so much. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was so lovely talking to you. It was such a treat. So
Same
thanks
here.
again for your time.
Okay, thanks. Okay, talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Since we are podcast newbies, it would mean a lot to us if you'd subscribe and rate us on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Also, we love to hear from our listeners. Leave us a voicemail at 785-746-2604. Email us at ask@geekygirlguide.com or hit us up on social media at Geeky Girl Guide, all one word, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
And remember, in the words of the great John Barrowman, never apologize for being nerdy. Until next time.